and welcome to the October 28th work session. Madam Secretary, will you take roll call?
Sure. Directors Cooney,
Present.
LaRue,
Present.
Phillips,
Present.
Schneider,
Present.
DeBeat, Connard, and Shore are absent. A quorum is present.
We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we will welcome our visitors and any media representatives. And the first agenda item we have is our math curriculum presentation.
All right, we are actually in the middle of our math curriculum adoption process, and so we're here tonight just to give you an update on where we are, and I have some special guests tonight who will be doing most of the presentation, and that's Jordan Meyer from Susan Clark, Gabe McDonald from the high school, Shannon Passvogel from our AEA, who's a math consultant, Lainey Berry, myself, and then we also have our principals here from the junior high and high school as well. This is what I knew was going to happen. This is a reminder of the curriculum adoption process that we use. There are 6 stages that we go through when we go through a curriculum adoption, and we use the same process for every different content area. The first stage is prepare, which we've been through, and research. We're currently just finishing that part up. And so Gabe and Jordan will be kind of walking us through those 2 stages so far. And then we'll kind of give you an update on phase 3 through 6 at the end of their presentation.
Okay, so I'm Jordan Meyer. I teach 7th and 8th grade math at Susan Clark. I'm going to talk about phase 1, which is the preparation part of the curriculum adoption. So you can kind of see here the 4 things that we're kind of focusing on. Reviewing the curriculum adoption process, which is what we're going to kind of be speaking about. Engaging in professional learning. So what we're doing as high school, junior high, and 6th grade math teachers is we are working through book study over principles to actions, which basically is just the effective teaching and learning practices that we should be seeing in our math classes, and then how that's tying into those curriculums. And then we're reviewing those evidence guides, which breaks down the criteria and the indicators that should be present in a high quality instruction. And then we're interacting with that evidence guide to kind of decide which curriculums we feel like best fit those indicators and that criteria. So that's the preparation stage. And then, okay. There we go. Oh, is that it? Okay.
Okay. Do I need to tilt this up a little bit? Thanks. So Gabe McDonald, I teach geometry at the high school, and I'll take you through the second phase. This is where we researched the different curriculums. So we followed Ed Reports. Ed Reports is a organization. I guess their mission is just to help teachers, administrators, curriculum leaders, just to make the best choice in choosing the math curriculum. So once we narrowed down to our 3 to 4 top choices, then we went through some vendor presentations. Both the junior high went through vendor presentations, and the high school also went through vendor presentations. Then after we had seen the different presentations, then we took a look at the evidence guide that follows Ed Reports. And I think I'll talk about the evidence guide a little bit more when we talk about the next stage.
So then, I'm going to just speak on like the 6-8 curriculum. So these are the 4 that we chose to look into, and these were the vendors that came for us, and just some like insights on those. All 4 of those scored high in the ed reports, which was obviously important for that. And then we also, as a junior high, kept in mind that eventually want this K-5 to also join in with this. And so all 4 of those curriculums are also K-5 curriculums in hopes to tie things together from a K-8 standpoint and potentially K-12 as well.
Yeah, I'd echo the same thing. They all received high marks from ed reports. When we looked at the evidence guide, it focused on you know, 3 main areas. So focus and coherence, and rigor and balance, and then also the usability of each of them. And so we will be meeting tomorrow night just to finalize our top 2 choices out of the 3. But I guess we were happy with the process, so it worked out well.
Did I break it? Nope. Okay. So in phase 3, which is where we're going to kind of end our day tomorrow starting out, is looking at which of the 2 they will want to pilot. And as we pilot, there's going to be some training, obviously, that goes with that. I obviously am not curriculum writers or developers, but I do obviously look through the materials to support them in their planning. So I'll be doing some CTTs to support the implementation of what they pilot, as well as supporting them to make sure that they have the materials that they need. They will have access to online and print materials from the publishers. So as if they were to have purchased, they will have all rights to the things that they decide to go with. And then the teachers will obviously engage in ongoing professional development and learning through this implementation. As Jordan had said, we are engaging in a book study that really does help with teaching and learning of mathematics, and supports how you might emphasize curriculum pieces that come with what you adopt. And then there are some walkthroughs that are going to be created. Again, teachers will be a part of what that looks like, sounds like, because it's not going to be evaluative. It will literally be about the components that go into the curriculum itself.
Hi, Lainey Berry, Curriculum Specialist, MTSS Instruction. I'm just going to talk a little bit about phase 4, which is what we will be entering phase 3 tomorrow. When we meet, we will select 2 pilots, 1 at the 6-8 level, or 2 at the 6-8 level, and then 2 at the 9-12 level. And they might overlap with companies, so that alignment piece would be covered that way. We are planning for our first pilot to start right after winter break on January 6th, so teachers would receive training prior to that in December. They would also have all the student and teacher materials as well as digital access so that they're ready to hit the ground running on that first day back. That runs through Valentine's Day. They will then have training for the second pilot and receive all of the materials ahead of time. So, and that gives them a week or 10 days, 2 weeks in between, just to kind of catch their breath, get focused on the next pilot, and then start that on February 24th, and that runs through April. We will have a community viewing, again, as we did with social studies. It will just be set up here in the boardroom, and parents can come in whenever they'd like. There will be a digital access component, but there are also textbooks in mathematics, so that's a lot easier to review for parents. And then we will also solicit feedback from all the teachers that engage in the process and all the students, because we want to know what students think. We consider that highly when we select curricular materials. Phase 5, we will meet together as a committee and review all the feedback from the surveys from the teachers and the students and the parents. We do look at those survey results also. And then they will make a final recommendation based on what our students' needs are and our teachers' needs are and which curriculum best fits with to meet those needs. And then we will present that to the board for your recommendation. And of course, we're going to be updating all of our stakeholders as we proceed through the process. Our pilot schools will be part of the training, and we will have 3 elementaries that pilot, and then all of the middle school and high school, junior high and high school teachers will pilot as well. And then the final recommendation will be shared with you, and then we will develop an implementation plan, because that's, once we select a curriculum, we want to make sure our teachers are prepared and supported with the implementation. So there'll be lots of training, and it will be ongoing and embedded. There'll be coaching and lots of supports with curriculum as well as professional learning. So those will be included with the plan as it is with social studies right now. And I'm turning it back over so they can share what's going on in the classrooms.
Okay, so just kind of some final thoughts. I'm going to start with the challenges and the barriers in terms of this curriculum adoption. I think the biggest issue, or I guess it shouldn't be issue, barrier we're finding is that it is hard to see a curriculum in its entirety in 2 months when you're teaching a class and everything. And so I think that's one thing that we're interested to see is what it's like to actually teach these units. But we're really excited to have a curriculum that engages our students. We've kind of been having to do a lot of creating of things to make sure that we're reaching these standards when we don't necessarily have a super strong curriculum. So we're really looking forward to having something that we can use that can support every student, our lowest, our highest, and also support all of our teachers as well.
Yes, at the high school, we have around a dozen teachers that are involved in the selection process right now. So everybody's pretty positive, pretty happy with how it's going so far. And obviously, we're going to have some busy months ahead of us getting prepared for the unit. So we're already looking ahead and looking at what we'll be teaching there in January and to April. So, but yeah, it's just been very positive so far. Been happy with it.
And then I think our last slide is just questions that you might have for any of us.
Mine basically is, because when you're talking about those pilot dates, that's a lot of information for this, not only the teachers, but the students to get in such a short period of time. Do you feel confident that that amount of time is going to be enough for each one of those pilot states so that helps you to figure out what is supposed to be best workable, or is that the normal that they tell you to try to do it as?
Well, and I can answer, and then if they want to add on, I think, with any adoption, we would love to be able to teach it longer. Our hope is they get one full unit in so that they can kind of experience what it is from the beginning to the end. And then they've also had the option, the opportunity to look at all of the materials. But I think, I think anybody would say we'd love to be able to teach it much longer. But just due to the timing of the school year and everything, it just kind of works out that way. And it's how it worked with ELA and social studies as well. So I don't know if you guys would want to add anything to that.
Just say I just agree with that. I feel like there is enough time to be able to go through a unit, get the guidance from the companies to be able to go through the process and see how it works in the class. Obviously, we're going to have to look just beyond the units that we're teaching to get a really good idea of everything that the book has to offer. So.
Great, thank you.
I heard you mention elementary, so is elementary in on, they're not in on, are they in on?
It's, so this is a 6th through 12 adoption this year. We ended up putting off K-5 for 1 year.
So they're not
so-
really piloting anything, or they haven't,
Not-
they won't be using these same, they'll do their own whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought somebody mentioned,
Yeah.
anyway. Okay.
We try to band like 6, 8, and 9, 12, and
Right.
most curriculums, you know, even though our 6th grade is in the elementary school, most curriculums are band 6, 8, so sometimes that can be challenging, yeah.
No, I thought that's how it was.
Yeah, we just waited that year just because they had ELA
Not
year
overload
2,
as it
so,
is, yeah.
yeah, year 1, so.
But I think your comment was that these are available K-5 as well, so that they can tie together as the years go.
I think, Laney, you mentioned a review timeline for the public, for the community. How long of a timeline will that be and how easy of access? Last time it seemed to be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, last time it was a challenge because some of them were online-only access. This will be textbooks and workbooks, so it will be really easy we'll just put them out and people can come in pretty much any time in the month of January, so it'll be pretty easy to access compared to the digital access from last time. That was challenging.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Food and Nutrition Program and Central Kitchen Update. Guessing that's Alicia.
I talk pretty loud, so I'll try to do some whispering here. Well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to present tonight. This is my 27th year, so I may have a lot to say. You might have to, I may have to come back next time. So I think Daphne was going to share the information that I was going to present tonight. I'll try to speed it up a little bit. There's several things on the list. I want to talk a little bit about the centralized production kitchen. For those that haven't had an opportunity to visit, you need to. It's pretty exciting. In the cold production area, that's where we prep fruits and vegetables. We have a machine there that does dicing and slicing for us. We have sliced vegetables for roasting, or we've sliced vegetables for roasting, like potatoes, carrots, peppers, and sent those out to all buildings. We have made, instead of purchasing baby carrots in pre-packages, we are cutting our own, or slicing our own carrots. So we have like 50-pound bags of carrots that we're purchasing versus the small packages that get dried out looking. They're not appealing, which I was really glad that we're able to do that. We slice our own cucumbers now. We dice all the vegetables for homemade salsa and salsa verde, and we send those out to Susan Clark and the high school. And we have tested fruit salsa, which is really good, but we're thinking that we might only be able to get away with that for catering, and which I'll get into that a little bit here as we go along. We have a sealing machine that gives us the capability to seal a variety of plastic containers, different sizes. We are currently providing side salads for Susan Clark and High School. We're working on chef, like Cobb salads with grilled chicken, maybe some bacon, that type of thing, restaurant style. We use seal canned fruits for sack lunches and for Susan Clark and the high school for their pre-portioned areas. We have added, this is really exciting, we've just recently added what we're calling Munchables, which is like Lunchables. The very first day I sent it out for field trips, I added it to field trips. Jefferson placed an order for all school for their field day. We're going, 400? How are we going to do that? And but we'll pull it off. We always do. So that's really exciting. That includes turkey coins, cheese squares, and Ritz crackers. In that same area, we have an amazing rotating sink that rotates, the water rotates for cleaning our fruits and vegetables. We can do 100 apples in a minute. We can do 100 raw potatoes for baked potatoes in 3 minutes. That's one of my favorite pieces of equipment. That's pretty cool to cut down on what it takes to clean those. In the bakery, we have a large dough mixer. It's used for the dough for dinner rolls. We have tested bread, homemade bread, and we've tested homemade hamburger buns. The rolls used to be hand pinched by hand, and it was harder also to obtain the ounces for crediting. The mixing bowl is on wheels, and it rolls across the floor to a lifter, which elevates the large bowl so that the bakers can cut off what they need from the large bowl, and it's about this high. It goes about this high up in the air. So it elevates it so they can either cut off what they need for the recipes, or they can dump the entire bowl if they want to. And then they will put the dough in for rising, and which now we have large proofers where they can roll entire racks, whereas before we would just proof those at room temperature. We have a rounder that looks like a robot. We want to add eyelashes and antennas. We're able to flatten the dough with a sheeter, and we put the dough on different plates that are for whatever size we need. If we're serving a 1 ounce roll, if we're serving a 2 ounce roll for the older kids, we place the dough on a tray, slide it in, and it will cut. We pull an arm down, it'll cut the rolls to the size that's needed, and then when we turn it on, it will also then round the dough pieces to the size that we need for the hot rolls. It's crazy. Then we have 2 carousel ovens. Before we could only fit 6 of the 18 by 24 baking sheets in it. Well, now we can bake 30 at one time. Which the bakers have been working on perfecting the blueberry muffins, which I've posted some pictures. The district finally gave me Facebook capabilities. I don't know if that'll be shut off at some point or or not. But we've shared the blueberry recipe, or the blueberry picture, or blueberry muffin pictures. They are working on perfecting. They're really very conscious. The bakers are very, very conscious, self-conscious about their product. They want the kids to love what they're serving, which of course that we need to do that. But in the large amounts that they're doing, it makes me very proud to be, a part of that. And we've added Greek yogurt to the muffins this year. So that's something new, and they've worked really hard on that. In the hot production kitchen, we have what's new to these particular cooks, braising skillets, which is a lot better than trying to reach into the 40 and 60 gallon kettles that they were used to before. We're able to cook 160 pounds of ground beef in each one. And it's, like I said before, it's much easier to reach into they're only about maybe 6 inches deep versus it's probably 3 to 4 feet, the depth of the kettles. And we do still have 2 large kettles because we'll use those for there's the muffins. Yeah. The large kettles are for soups, and sometimes we'll use it to boil water if we have, our Alfredo sauce comes in bags, but it's so delicious. I don't know that we could match that with the quantities that we're talking about. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to try, but it is really good. We have 2 blast chillers, another favorite piece of equipment. It allows us to chill foods to a safe temperature before placing in the freezer. It also promotes food safety. So if we've cooked chili up to, we always cook everything to 165, but something of that large magnitude, it's probably upwards of 200 degrees. We can roll an entire rack of pans into a blast chiller, and then it brings it down extremely quick. We can also leave it in the blast chillers overnight if they're just getting done at 1 o'clock with those types of things.
Good morning, this is Alicia Eggers from the centralized.
Yes, it is. Hey, that's what I do, Tom. That's what I do. The one thing that we found out when we had the chef visit is that We can also thaw ground beef. So our cases of ground beef come in at 40 pounds, which we only pay $4.50 for that entire case, just in case anybody wondered. So we can also thaw ground beef in those blast chillers. That was something amazing that we learned. So if we put frozen ground beef in the cooler 3 days ahead, that's normally what we do, 3 to 4 days ahead. If it's not entirely thawed out for us to cook it, then we can throw it in the blast chiller below the temperature, below the 32 degrees, and it'll start thawing us for us a lot quicker than if we have it bunched on sheets in the cooler, because there's a lot of air movement in there. They're amazing. Let's see. So we've just created a celebration list this week, and I think on your notes there's a link there that you can look at that. We want to kind of help our parents and community, so we're working on that. It's a draft currently, but we thought it was a way to offer individualized treats for classroom celebrations versus maybe, I don't know if this is still happening at the elementaries or not, versus parents bringing in cupcakes and things like that they've made. Let's see. Our free and reduced percent is down a little bit right now. It's 47.56%. Last year's meals, and that's as of today, last year's meal status is expired on 10/5. So that means not everyone has completed a new application for this school year. We have found that some parents are thinking that with the registration process, that home economic form that they're filling out, they think they're completing the free and reduced application when they're not. So that's one thing. We have done multiple mailings. First of all, at the beginning, before school starts, we do a household mailing that includes the application link and just a variety of different communication that we're required to send out every year. There's multiple reasons that, well, I guess I'm going to lead into that, but it is parents sometimes just don't remember, even though we blast them with mail, but, we're also, I'm getting 6 political flyers a day sometimes. So it's something that maybe they're not looking at, maybe they're, but anyway, there's a variety of different reasons. Our lunch participation is down actually over 19,000 meals. Breakfast is down over 8,000 meals. Now I want you to hang with me for just a little bit. Last year overall was up 8,000 meals. Meal pricing, which is going to lead me into the next discussion point, breakfast is $2, the different levels, $2, and then the high school is $2.10. Lunch is $3 at the lower levels. Junior high is $3.10 and high school is $3.20. Our negative balances as of today, $53,354. I'm going to let that set in. We notify parents by letters. We use Parent Square messaging. Sometimes, I will call personally. We do have listed in our annual communication that we may use collection agencies. At this point, I think that's probably a group discussion that we need to have. But there's really there's a variety of different reasons that parents or guardians don't pay for meals. One, it's hard to come back from having free meals for almost 2 years. Parents allow their prior statuses, like on October 5th, they allow those statuses to expire and they don't fill out the application right away. Therefore, they're getting negative balances because their kids are now having to pay, free or reduced. And the economy with grocery bills have doubled. I know that mine has doubled. People are choosing to pay what they have to pay And they know in Muscatine, their kids are gonna get fed. We provide them the same meal that any other kid is gonna get, regardless of what, we have negative balances upwards of $1,200. And some parents are just not gonna pay. Now, I ask you to hang with me. In our summer meal program, Muscatine is considered rural, so it makes us eligible to be able to provide the weekly breakfasts and lunches for kids ages 1 to 18. So for breakfast, we were up 33,120 meals. For lunch, we were up 23,291 meals. This also included some deliveries for parents or guardians that didn't have transportation. Luckily for us, we have non-emergency transport helps us with that. Dana LaRue is our point of contact, so that's amazing. Let's see. So before I ask for questions, I am going to return with updates in November. Joelle and I and our committee will be working on the wellness policy, and Lindsay's volunteered to help with that. And we have been scheduled for an audit in February from the 10th through Happy Valentine's Day to us, the 14th. And we've answered 1,000 questions at least. I was working on that before I got here today. And plus I wanted to make Clint and Chris sweat a little bit. Any questions?
So if their status is up on October 5th, it doesn't retro, right? So if they miss until it's updated, it's still, there's
Yeah.
nothing that can be done.
I will tell you that the state, it's through the Department of Human Services, we electronically will transfer students that qualify for free meal based upon their programs, but we will get like October 2nd on October 20th, which if it's within the same month that we discover that, sometimes it isn't. If it's within the same month, we can reverse those charges. If it's not within the same month, depending on the circumstance, we will, because we do have some money in a donation account, but we don't have enough to pay off $53,000. It's like maybe, we may have like $4,000.
What's the time span of that? Is that just this year, or is that?
No, it was probably $35,000 at the end of the year.
Okay.
So it continues to go with them. Now, if they move and they don't come back, because if they come back, we have it. You know, we check that documentation when we have students return to the district. But if they don't come back, it's still just kind of hanging there.
And we're not using that to hold diplomas or anything, are we?
No. And I've had parents contact me for payment plans, and they might pay the first installment, and that might be it. And it's, you know, I mean, it's not to point fingers to anybody. I was a free kid my whole life. I'm glad I was, because it kind of made me who I am today. And, you know, we have a food court at the high school. So.
I had the pleasure of going through, and she has that smile on her face the whole time she's doing tours too. So I can tell you really enjoy what you do. I guess part of my question, because you did a great laundry list of how things have improved, what can you tell us that you think is the best improvement from how you were from before having to do compared to now, and probably your absolute favorite meal, I guess, for the kids?
Well, I'm gluten intolerant. Obviously, I find plenty to eat, but those baked goods, I can't try those. So that's a big barrier in a position like this. But when I go to a food show, it's really nice that I take others with me, and they have to be the ones getting full to try new products. I love our taco salad, walking taco. I think our taco meat is really, really good. Being able to cook 160 pound, or, to be able to cook a large amount of meat and easier for the employees. Gosh, I don't know. I love that the hot rolls can be made so easily now compared to a person just hand pinching the hot rolls. I love the cold production area. The one thing that was forgotten, the other areas have their own walk-in cooler. That area does not. I mean, we have the cooler, we use the large walk-in cooler, but there's so many things. It is really very exciting. I mean, we had to do it, Central closed. We had to do it. We had to have a kitchen. I don't know what those utility bills were costing while we were there. Tom, do you?
Well,
I don't want to know what they're costing now.
The question you actually brought up is actually good from the standpoint, because you said what you have for intolerance. Is there something that you do for kids that may have some different nutritional type of intolerances or anything?
Yes.
Are you able to help with some of that?
Yes, there's actually, there's only one student that actually follows or participates in the meal programs that's gluten intolerant. So they send me the same thing that he gets so that, at least I get to critique that. But we have about 600 dietary modification forms for students. That doesn't mean that we have to provide meals for all of them. But we have 2 students at McKinley that we're blending meals for. And sometimes those are of a different consistency. Sometimes it's liquid, sometimes it might be like pudding type. There's a variety of different things but we do accommodate. We even try to accommodate for religions if we can, like if students don't eat pork, well, oftentimes, like hot dogs, for instance, they're made with turkey instead of pork. So there's oftentimes we can help out with little or no work at all. And with our meal viewer online, the meal viewer has all the allergens listed, and then it has like the calories and things like that. So sometimes parents can, especially diabetics, they can manage some of that on their own. But we do work with nurses for that too.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you separate the grease on 130 pounds of hamburger and get that out of the vat?
So there is a drain that's about this big. So we will we have like a thing that you put in there to keep the meat in, and then we put it in 5-gallon buckets, and we let it solidify. And then we throw it away.
That makes a lot of sense.
You gotta come in, Ken.
I will.
Well, I'm excited to hear about all of the fresh options, because I know sometimes it's just hard to get them in, so you end up kind of with like the leftovers, right, of what can we have shelf stable, and so I'm really excited for all the fresh produce and all of those things. And I have a food sensitive kid, so anytime I hear of all of those extra things that are going on, like that fuel is gonna determine his day, so I'm trying to get him to eat school lunch, but he's scared.
Well, do you have recipes at home that he enjoys that we might be able to incorporate?
He's going to eat one of those muffins, I'm pretty sure. He's going to do that. So I appreciate all the pictures. I think the publicity that you've been doing is really good, and it's very nice to see that. So thank you for sharing, and don't take away her access.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move to the superintendent update.
So just a few things to update tonight, but first and foremost, just want to give you an update on certified enrollment. So as you know, October 1st, we start to lock in that number, and we have to finalize that by October 15th. And in Iowa, for our schools here, that's a really important date because that, as you know, drives a lot of our budget conversations throughout the rest of the year. For a number of years, we've seen that kind of slow, steady decline, and we've talked about this before, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But this year, so last year, our budget enrollment was down 152 students. This year, we're down 105, so we're down less, but we're still down more than, you know, what we would like. One of the things to consider is just the difference between our graduating class and our kindergarten classes each year is 75 to 85. It was 85 this year, it's been about 75 in the past. So a lot of that depends on that kindergarten number coming in. The other thing we've shared with you is when you look at the birth rate for Muscatine, it goes down about 2.5% per year on average, right? Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So that has had an impact in the number of students that are coming in as well. And in talking with Tom this morning, he does some projections on that, and when you really start looking out of kind of where our grade levels are now through the system, it's about 2030 when some of the smaller classes that are in, like Susan Clark right now, would be graduating, where we might start to see that shift of bigger kindergartens versus our graduating classes. So wanted to share with you that we had about 43 students that were, you would consider public school students last year that moved to private. That number includes 31 that went to kindergarten, which we would see typically every year, right? For St. Mary Matthias and also the Muscatine Christian Academy. And so then we had about 11 more students outside of that between first grade through 12th grade that ended up somewhere. So we have seen a little bit of increase in that. We've seen some increase in online providers, so open enrolling to an online provider. So one of the things that the legislation started to tighten up was putting a deadline back in place for open enrollment. Although this year it was July 1st, but it wasn't really well communicated, so a lot of parents weren't aware. So we're now really starting to tighten that up now. But that does not include, there is no deadline for online programs. So they can go to online anytime, and you have to allow them. So that's still an area we're going to continue to monitor. So again, what does that mean for us? It certainly will have budget implications. We don't know what those will be yet. Depends on what the legislators set for SSA, for supplemental state aid, right? We know depending on that level, if it's high enough, we may not need to go on budget guarantee, but if it comes in low, we're likely to be on budget guarantee. So also looking at some of those pieces this morning. Again, we can guess what will happen in Des Moines this year, but again, we'll have to really wait and see. But a lot of those ongoing conversations as we start getting into the budget season. So, questions about enrollment? Okay. I also shared with you some class size information. Lindsay reminded me last year about this time. I shared that with you as well. So what you have, what we call our dashlet is just by building. It's the number of sections. We have a formula for the number of kindergarten students, first grade students, so on, and that kind of drives the number of sections. And then you'll see modified sections. That kind of ends up being what the actual sections are, and buildings may make decisions based on what works best for their building, talking with teachers. So you'll see a little bit of difference there, but you can kind of see on average where those class sizes are. Obviously, it's a little bit different at the secondary level because the schedule drives a lot of that. In addition to that, we recently got information from the UEN, which is kind of the larger districts in the state, as a comparison for class size. So you can kind of see where, you know, K1, 2, all the way up through high school, where we compare with them. And we really compare very favorably to a majority of those districts. So I wanted to make sure I shared class size, but also context of kind of how that compares to other districts. Questions?
There's one number that I just want you to explain.
Yes.
Third grade at Grant. We have one class, 35 students, but I know that there's more than one FTE in there.
So if you look, the modified sections is 2. So initially they had 1 and we moved it to 2. So that section
So
was,
they're fully separated now
yes,
into 2.
I believe so, yes. Okay, any additional questions about that? If not, I will jump into, we continue to keep the DDE survey open. We're at 433 staff as of today. We'll continue to kind of promote that and push that. We'd like to get back to that 500 number that we had last year. I believe we've exceeded the parent responses from last year, and we've exceeded the student responses, again, partly because last year with the law change around surveys, you had to have explicit permission from parents to take the survey, which we didn't need in the past. So we only had about 800 last year. So with the registration process kind of building that in, we have a significantly higher amount of students responding to that, which is good. So we'll have that open for at least another week or so. And then we'll begin to start pulling those data pieces together. And our next District Environment Committee is this Wednesday. We'll be continuing to talk about kind of the information from last year and the goals we set last year as we kind of finish out. And then this new data would be presented in January and February to that group, and we'll go back through that process, kind of a continuous improvement process. Wanted to just share with you, I have talked to Shane Williams and Kim Hoffman with the AEA. Last year, before the legislative session, knowing that some changes were likely to happen, we brought them in to our community conversation. I've talked to them again, and they will come back in November, this next community conversation. So we talked about, what is that right time? And if we want to get in front of people and talk to as many people before legislators get, to Des Moines and just kind of understand some of the context and some of the changes from this past year. So they plan on attending that community conversation in November. And I've also talked to the chief of police as potentially coming in December for a community conversation as well. And we did kind of both of those things last year, and they were well attended. So we're looking at doing those again. And then the last piece I wanted to share, tomorrow I've been invited to sit in on city administrator interviews for our 3 finalists. And also just wanted to remind you that there is a meet and greet for the community at the Arts Center from 5 to 6:30. So anyone has an opportunity to meet the candidates and engage with them and provide feedback. So obviously this is another important position for the community, and I know they want to get as much input into that process as possible.
And they'll be when again?
Tomorrow at the Arts Center from 5 to 6:30. Questions for me?
All right, we'll move along. The next thing on our agenda is the second reading of Policy 103, an educational and operational planning and needs assessment. Was there any discussion? No? All right. And then announcements for upcoming meetings and events. We have November 5th is General Election Day. The polls will open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. November 11th is our school board community conversations that Clint just mentioned. November 11th also, school board, the annual organizational meeting here. And then on the 12th, the Riverbend Food Bank will be here 4 to 5:30.
And again, that's a change. Typically, they would be here on the 5th, which is the election day, so we have to move that. So we just push it back a week. We'll have some signs out that day in case, but if people are here, they can come in and vote. So, and they'll have to come back the following week.
Are there any other announcements?
I would just say a shout out to the football team winning on the last play of the game on Friday.
It's an exciting way to finish the season, for sure.
Very nice.
I know.
All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. we're adjourned. Oh, do I have to do all? I would forget something. All right, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Say aye. Same sign for, no?
Good, thank you.
We're adjourned now.